Okay, welcome everyone to the Copper Cycle Lab. What you are looking at here is part one, where we're going to react copper 2 sulfate with sodium hydroxide. Make sure to make your before observations and describe what these two solutions look like. Go ahead and feel free to pause the video at any time if you need to slow down and write some things down. We have 25 milliliters of the copper 2 sulfate and 8 milliliters of the sodium hydroxide. And now we are going to mix these two solutions into this beaker. And this is where you're going to make your during observations for part one. And we're going to stir this carefully with a stirring rod. I would maybe stir that a bit more, and yeah, we might want to add a bit of water to that from one of the wash bottles to make it a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. So you don't want it too much in a gel state before we go on to the next step. I think that's good. So in the next step, we're going to attempt to filter out one of the products of this reaction, which we will in turn use in the next reaction. So we're going to fold a piece of filter paper twice, like that. And again, feel free to pause the video any time to write down your during observations. And we're going to place it into a filter, and we'll use a bit of distilled water to help stick the filter to the funnel. And now we're going to pour the reaction mixture through the funnel, and hopefully the solid will be left behind and trapped in the filter while everything else passes through. Probably we want to give that a little bit of a rinse.
We don't want to leave any of this good stuff behind.
Exactly. And so this part does take a little while, so we're going to fast forward in time here in just a moment, but you can see the stuff is moving through the filter, and you can see that what is coming out and falling into the filter paper. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part two of the Copper Cycle Lab. Here we have the exciting conclusion to reaction one. In the filter, you see some solid copper 2 hydroxide, and the water and the other aqueous product of the reaction has fallen through the filter, and so that's what the end result is. Now what we're going to do is do a decomposition reaction using heat. We're going to put the copper 2 hydroxide into this beaker of water that is almost boiling, and just let it heat. And what you're going to do for the during reactions in this part is what you observe as this is heated. Now again, this is going to take a little while. We're going to dunk that in there.
Should I flip it?
Yeah, you could flip it. And you could just, yeah, and you can leave the whole filter paper in there for a while as this heats. So as the heat is applied, the copper 2 hydroxide is going to be transformed into copper 2 oxide and also water. So in the during reactions, we can be recording what we see here. The copper 2 oxide is black, and you can see some of that starting to form.
Why do you think it turns black, Mr. Lewis?
Great question. I think the color is of a certain compound is influenced by the charge of the metal, but also by what it's bonded with. So I would say that the fact that it's bonded to oxygen influences how it's interacting with light.
Looks pretty nice.
Yeah, maybe see, do a little more kind of dunking with that thing and see if we could get most of as much of the product off as possible.
This is testing my tong skills.
I think you're doing well.
Thank you. This is like the chemistry fondue. I'm gonna dunk. Want to get all of this solid off. Don't want to lose it.
We could try to rinse it, like hold it out and rinse it.
Maybe give it a little rinse. Okay.
So you can see that I think if we made our best effort to rinse some of that off, I think we can call it a good effort for the day. So you can see that the transformation is more or less complete here. We're going to let this sit for a while, and it is. We'll show you at the beginning of the next reaction what happens. That copper 2 oxide is going to settle down to the bottom. So join us again in the next segment. Okay, welcome to part 3 of the Copper Cycle Lab video. Here we have, this really is the end of part 2. You can see we have a clear and colorless liquid at the top, and the black substance you see at the bottom is the copper 2 oxide. So we're going to try to pour off as much of the stuff as we can, not counting the copper 2 oxide. So again, this is really still kind of the end of reaction 2. And once we have that, we will begin reaction 3. So we're doing our best to save as much of the copper 2 oxide as we can. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I think we've managed to pour off a good amount. Yeah, that's good enough. So, here is where we have the beginning of part 3. So in your before observations for reaction 3, we have the copper 2 oxide, a little bit of water, a little bit of the other aqueous product, and now we're going to mix it with hydrochloric acid. So you see this is the hydrochloric acid here. So again, feel free to pause the video and make your before observations for reaction 3. But we're going to go ahead and mix, I'll turn it so you can see it a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and mix the HCl with the copper 2 oxide. And give it a stir. These are our during observations for reaction 3. Okay, I think that's it. We're pretty much finished. Welcome to part 4. So in part 4, we're taking our end product of reaction 3, which is copper 2 chloride here, and we're reacting it with powdered zinc. Zinc is a metal, looks like most other metals. This is just a powdered form of it. So we're going to combine the solid zinc with the, so your before observations would be what these two substances look like before we start. And then your during observations will be as we combine these. So let's go ahead and mix the zinc with the copper 2 chloride. And you can make some during observations. Now, this reaction does take a while to finish up all the way. It's hard to tell the actual color, but the clumpy stuff that you're seeing forming there is actual elemental copper. It looks kind of dark when you're viewing it through the blue solution, but after we let this sit a while, it will be apparent that we've made some sort of reddish brown copper. So I'm going to let you watch this for a little bit, and then we will fast forward in time and show you what it looks like at the very end. You can kind of begin to see that that is in fact sort of a brownish, reddish brown color copper forming. Okay, so now you can see the final reaction is mostly complete. It still could go a little longer if we let it sit for a while longer, but the blue color has mostly faded or gotten reduced quite a bit. That blue color comes from the Cu+2 ions in solution. The Cu+2 ions have been converted to actual legit copper. You can see it a little bit better here. That is, no doubt about it, actual copper, like metal, like you could. And we can see some black material there, but the brown stuff that you're seeing is the sort of like powdery copper metal that we've produced. And if we wanted to, we could take this and filter it out and capture the copper and do anything you would normally do with copper with it, because that is actual copper that we have made. So, thanks for watching, folks. By the way, you should include this kind of final state of what this looks like as the after reactions in reaction 4. Make sure that you include what it actually ends up looking like. In theory, it would quit bubbling eventually, but I think you get the idea. So thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day.